Kelly. Join me as I show you how to do this pearl crosswalk bracelet. It looks like the center of your crosswalk with those pearls sticking up. And if you need any materials, go ahead and look below the video. In the description, we'll get links to get you back to our site there and purchase everything you need. Gather everything up on your bead on it board and let's get started. So the beautiful thing about a 2-needle project is that you can start right away by adding the clasp. I have my 2 needles here on some size 6 black dragon thread, and I'm using the black. You could use green too, just so that way you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to add 1, 2, and 3 11-0 seed beads to my thread and needle. And then I'm going to go into this Jet AB cut button, and I'm going to take 1 needle through one side and 1 needle through the other hole of the clasp. Drop that to the bottom of my thread, and the seed beads are just used to hold it in place there. From here, I'm going to make sure that I maintain the same amount of thread on both the right and the left needle. Go ahead and put in 1 and 2 and 3 11-0 seed beads on both the left and the right. And if you struggle to work with 2 hands, I will say it gets easier and easier the more that you do it. But you can also put your needle into your bead on it board and then use your right hand with both needles, or left hand if you're left-handed. The next bead I'm going to put on, I'm putting on, so I did 3 on the right, 3 on the left. And then this next bead here, that 7th bead, we're going to crisscross the needles through that bead. 1 needle going through from right to left and the other from left to right. Again, I want to make sure that I have equal amounts of thread still on both sides of the project. And you're going to see that makes a little V right after the button. And that is going to give us space for our loop, which is going to go around the button before we get into our bracelet. From here, we're going to begin our bracelet design. After you're done putting on your clasp, I want you to put 2 seed beads on both the right needle and the left needle. We're then going to pick up our first bead, which is going to be one of our tubelet beads. And just like we did with that first 11-0 seed bead that we crisscrossed through, we're going to do a lot of crisscrossing through our beads. So I picked up my first tubelet. 1 needle goes from the left to the right and the other from the right to the left, crossing through and pulling that down nice and tight next to my piece. From here, we are going to add an additional 2 seed beads on our needle, both on the right and on the left. Pick up your next bead, which is going to be your ingot, and just like we did previously, go ahead and cross through from the right to the left and pull it down. You can see those seed beads just kind of hang out on the side there, decorating just a little bit and hiding your thread that goes right there. From here, we're going to get ready to put our pearl in the middle. This time with the ingot, I want you to do 1, 2, and 3 of your 11-0 seed beads on both the right needle and 1, 2, and 3 seed beads on the left. Grab your pearl, and again, this whole center row is just going to be crisscrossing through your main beads and adding seed beads along the side. So on go 3 seed beads to the right, 3 seed beads to the left, and then you're crisscrossing through that pearl. From here, we're going to do the same thing, just going in reverse. So coming out of the pearl, 3 seed beads on the right, 3 seed beads on the left, and then crisscrossing through your next ingot bead. Once you crisscross through the next ingot bead, then we're going to add 2 seed beads and we're going to crisscross through our tubelet bead. So 3 seed beads go on the right and the left, right there through the ingot, and then 2 more seed beads as we crisscross through the tubelet as well. 2 on the right needle, 2 on the left needle, crisscross through your next tubelet bead. And that's going to end the variation of getting smaller to bigger and then going back down again for that first complete component. The main thing that you want to make sure is that you pull your thread and needle tight because you don't want to see a lot of extra on the sides, and you want your ingot beads and your tubelets to sit nice and lateral. After your last tubelet bead, to start your rows again, or your little component again, I want you to take 4 11-0 seed beads in that nice silver lined gold AB and crisscross through those to end that segment. We're going to do the same thing now over and over until you get your wrist size that you need for your bracelet. I'm going to make mine to about 7 inches. We're going to do the loop, and then we'll come back and add our outer edges. Once you get to the end of the design, what you're going to do is put 2 seed beads on both the right and the left needle, and then a 3rd seed bead that we're going to crisscross through, just like the start of the piece. That's going to crisscross right after the last tubelet bead. And then we're going to make a loop. Now I want to reinforce this loop because we're not coming back down this way again. And we're going to put about 32 of our 11 seed beads onto our thread and needle. Anytime you're doing a clasp or closure, you want to always make sure that, 26 to 32, depending on what size. You want to make sure that when you are doing your loop, that you always have at least 2 strands of thread going through. Now, when we started and did our cup button side, we did not do so because we're coming back down the project and adding in on the sides. So we don't need those additional pieces for the side. Once you have your loop here and your seed beads on, you're going to take that same needle and thread that's in your hand and cross back through that bead that you're sharing from the opposite edge. That's going to make your loop. I need to take some off. I didn't count and it got way too big. And then I'm going to take my thread and loop around again. And then I'm going to loop around one more time. So I have 3 pieces of thread that are going to be in my loop before I go down and create the sides of my bracelet. You can see I've already gone down this side, adding in a little bit. And just to show you a little bit closer, as you're coming out the side here, we're going to go through the 2 11 seed beads that sit along the side. Then we're going to add 1, 2, and 3 more 11s. And so up through the 2 beads leading up to the ingot bead. On the ingot, we're going to basically close that off by adding 1 more 11 seed bead and sew through the first bead after the ingot bead. Let your thread and needle exit there. Grab your next tubelet bead, skip over to the last bead before the next ingot and sew through there, which is going to link that together. Add another 11 and then sew down along the side here. Just like we added in the middle between our rows, we're going to add 4 seed beads. So you're going to add 1, 2, 3, and 4 11 seed beads, and then continue that same pattern, going through those first 2 seed beads before the ingot, 1 seed bead above the ingot, and then right out after that first seed bead. After the first seed bead after the ingot, grab another tubelet, go over to the next ingot, and sew through the first bead before the ingot. And you can see that frames out our pearl in that nice cross section. You're going to continue with both sides, doing so, adding in the 11 seed bead above the ingot, sewing through just the first seed bead after, adding your tubelet bead, and sewing through the first ingot or the first seed bead before the ingot. Getting that nice framed out look, adding 1 11 seed bead down through those 2 when you're at the link connection point, and connecting them with a total of 1, 2, 3, and 4 seed beads, and then starting that pattern all over again. What that does is it frames out the pearls and frames out this beautiful squared ingot bracelet. Once you get to the end and you have all of your tubelets in place, you're going to just reinforce the edge here of your clasp. So I've already gone through with my thread that was on the left, and I've gone back up through, because remember we went 3 threads through, and right now there's just 1. Back up through the clasp, through the seed beads, down through the other side, and tying off further down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my thread and needle back towards the design, and I'm going to tie my thread off and then burn it off toward the design. With 2 needles, it's really nice because all I need to do is tie the threads together and then separate them and burn them off in 2 different spots, so that way we don't get a big knot. But you basically bring the threads next to one another, grab both ends, right over left, left over right, tying them off for the design. And then this intersection bracelet is finished. Again, burn those thread edges down. And you could build off of this. Actually, Nathan walked in and gave me an idea that you could build a whole separate row off of this in another color, or alternate it that you have the pearl sections going in the middle here, doing a second or a third row on the design. So that's your challenge if you're watching, and make sure to post your picture of it in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. It's a really simple design, but it really pops and makes those pearls at the intersections stick up. Thanks so much for joining me for this pearl intersection bracelet. It's a really fun idea to do it in multiple rows or to really change up and do any sort of bead for this. I love the simplicity of the 2-needle design for this because you really can change up the bracelet, adding crystals to the sides, adding 8 seed beads in between the ingots, and really make it your own. As always, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads, and stay tuned for more inspirational designs.